So, you figure, how do these things all fit together? Well, I'm saying it's May. We are like full on spring. The risk of frost is past. These are the days that we garden for, right? Grass is green, trees are blooming. Uh, it just really doesn't get any better than where it is right now. But we all know, or we have to be aware, that as much as we enjoy the month of May, that means summer is just around the corner. So there's a bunch of things we can do in our yard to get ourselves ready for that upcoming season. So, I always want to be present, enjoy the moments that we have, but on the back of our mind, we want to be thinking about what's ahead. So I've got lots and lots of stuff to cover, so I'm just going to jump right into it. We're also going to take your questions. But I'm going to kick this off talking a little bit about lawns, what we can do to keep our lawns looking terrific as we move into the summer months. So I've got a little video to kick this one off.
Thank you for joining me today to talk about lawn care. It's easy to have a beautiful lawn in May. It's thick, it's dark green, it's lush, and this is because the cool temperatures and the ample rain this spring have really helped us along the way. But as we start to move into summer and the temperatures start to get hotter, this is when all the stress begins to show. Your lawn starts to lose color and vigor, weeds start to move in, and then you're wondering what happened to that gorgeous lawn that you had in May. Well, I have several tips to share with you today to help prevent that from happening. But first, let me bring you up to date on how we got to where we are. Last fall, starting in September, we aerated, seeded, and fertilized this lawn. In fact, we fertilized it 3 different times. And all those nutrients that we pumped into the grass in the fall were left there to build the root system and store carbohydrates. All that stored food reserve that was in the ground from last fall gets channeled into vegetative growth the next spring. So when your lawn is growing like crazy in April and into early May, what it's doing is it's actually flowering. And you'll see this in your lawn right about mid-May. All the little flowering stalks, the seed heads come up. And sometimes it's even a distraction, and people will bring this in asking me what kind of weeds this is, and I have to explain, oh, this is just your lawn blooming. Well, after that bloom season, there's a little period where we can take advantage of this kind of recovery time. It's after it's maximized its growth and before the hot summer months come in. This is an opportunity where we can come in and actually fertilize the lawn lightly, just to reinvigorate and restore and renew the lawn. There's also research that shows by using organic products that can help suppress disease problems. So for this late spring, early summer application, I like to use Milorganite or Lawn Restore, both of which are organic fertilizers. Now last spring, we also, or actually around March, we put down a weed preventer. So that weed preventer has worked well, and it helps and prevents weeds from growing in, but it only lasts for about 3 months. So when I apply that in March, that carries me through March, April, May, but by the end of June, it's expired, and then weeds start to creep in. So I'm also going to be applying the preen crabgrass control today to give us that extended weed prevention quality that will take us through the rest of the summer. Otherwise, you will start to see weeds creep in late summer. And then along with that, I just have a few patches of clover and a few other weeds here and there show up. I wanted to wait until our grass was really well established from last fall and deeply rooted. So I'll go around with a weed killer. I'm using Trimex Speed, which works a little faster and more effective than some of the others. And that I can use to kill the weeds without damaging your lawn. So with these 3 steps, putting down organic fertilizer, making my second application of weed preventer, and killing off the weeds that are here, I'm really set up for success this summer. And that should carry us through in September, which we start doing our lawn restoration, our seeding, and our heavy fertilizing again. I hope these tips have been helpful, and please feel free to stop by Maryfield Garden Center anytime, where our plant and lawn care specialists are here to help with any questions you may have.
Okay, well, I wanted to make sure we invite you to send any questions you might have. Like I said before, I leave the lawn topic and start on tomatoes. So if you do have any questions or clarifications or any thoughts you have on regarding your lawn, please send those to Sally. Again, what happened is, the weather has really been kind to us in terms of our lawns. These are cool season grasses, so they're just loving life. They're thriving when temperatures are, 55 to 75 degrees. But just like today, now we're hitting some hot weather and everything. This is when the plants begin getting stressed. So just to be really clear on that, that we do our seeding and our fertilizing 2-3 applications in the fall. That's when we build our root system, and we only fertilize our lawn once in the spring. So if you've already fertilized your lawn this spring, you can kind of check that off on your done list. If you put down a weed preventer, like I said, there's no urgency, but sometime within the next month, you're probably going to be due for doing that second application. Again, the weed killer is just kind of if you've had a few things pop up here and there. But this also means if you got delayed, you kind of just fell behind for whatever reason, and you have not done your spring lawn care, let's try to get on that right away. Normally, I say my opportunity is about May 15 to June 15. We're in that window of application, trying to catch all these chores, get them done before the hot weather kicks in. So kind of with that in mind, any questions we have pertaining to your lawn or really anything?
Yeah, we've got a few questions, David. The first question was, you mentioned the spot weed killer. Is that the Trimec?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. That was the first one. Just wanted to make sure I had that correct. Next
Yeah,
question.
Trimec Speed. That's a second word. There's Trimec. There's 2 or 3 different formulations. That one that's called Trimec Speed is the one that gives us a little better results and a little faster than some of the others.
Okay, that's good to know. Next question is there anything we can do now to prevent Bermuda grass?
I'm trying to count this. So the answer is yes. Not exactly prevent Bermuda grass, but with this warm weather we're having, Bermuda grass, like I said, that's a warm season grass. So now that we're, I think even hitting maybe 90 today, it should be greened up and growing. There's a couple of products that you can use to suppress Bermuda grass. I'm not going to promise it will kill it, but one is there's it's called literally just Bermuda grass control. It comes in a hose end spray. We have it treats about 5,000 square feet. It suppresses the Bermuda grass without harming your turf, but it doesn't really eliminate it. Now there's a new product out. I say new, this is the 3rd summer that we've been selling it. It's called Crabgrass Destroyer. And I'm getting even better results with that. It's a little more expensive, but sometimes with 2 applications, you can spray it once, wait about 3-4 weeks and spray it a second time. And the interesting thing where I'm hesitating or being a little cautious, and I say this, Bermuda grass is not actually on the label. It's labeled for things like crabgrass and nimblewill and stilt grass, and it's giving us excellent results. But I've had many customers that said, well, let me try this on Bermuda grass, and I'm getting really good feedback from the customers. So there are a couple things that you could try to get started on, but always see me or one of the plant specialists in the store to get all the details.
Thanks, David. Next question is, how do you differentiate, and pardon me here, POA annua versus normal fescue flowering?
Yeah. Poana was in full bloom probably about a month ago, 4 to 6 weeks ago. So these plants, they look very similar. But like I said, Poana is pretty much, I don't want to say completely done with, but it would be yellowing, withering, and it was in full bloom, like I said, a month ago. Your Kentucky bluegrass lawns are really in full bloom right now. So that's the easiest way to do it. Also, Poana, it's a tufted grass. If you look at it, it's a little clump of grass like this, whereas the Kentucky bluegrass spreads by rhizome. But yeah, the flower structure is really similar, because again, that's how we identify flowers, because you look at rough bluegrass, the annual bluegrass, Kentucky bluegrass, Canadian bluegrass, there's several of them. All of them have very similar flower structure, but the timing varies a little bit.
Thanks, David. Um, here's kind of a funny one. Question. So I shouldn't expect much out of the grass, seed, soil, and hay that was thrown down by our HOA contracted lawn maintenance folks, with like a grimacing face. I think it's a grimace. Is there anything that they should do if their HOA lawn people come through and just kind of do a standard?
I mean, normally what happens is I try to caution people. Sometimes, hey, you've had some construction, exposed soil. Sometimes you just have to go through and do a spring seeding. But what happens most of the time, like 90% of the time, if we go into 90-degree heat, dry temperatures, and you've got baby grass that's maybe 6 weeks old, that baby grass is not going to make it through to the end of summer, and then just plan to come in and do some additional repair work in September. So I just always caution people with spring seeding. Yes, you can do it. It'll grow in. Things that initially look good, but just expect to come back and do additional repair in September. Watering helps, but there is a difference between heat stress and drought stress. So if we had dry conditions, we can go out and water. But when temperatures are 95 or 100 degrees, that little grass is just not going to make it. So I just put that out as what I call my managing expectations thing.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing you can do other than hope for cool weather. I've been living in this area all my life, so I don't put a whole lot of hope in that. But if temperatures stay cool, maybe you'll get better results than what I'm expecting.
Yeah, that actually ties into a question one of our attendees just wrote in. They wanted to know if there is an optimal watering program for the lawn during the hot, stressful weeks. So do you have any, is there any sort of program you recommend following, or is there not really much you can do once it gets super?
I've been over all the years that I keep doing this, and I keep saying it's more, it really comes down to trying to set what your goals and what your expectations are. If you want to keep the grass green and keep it growing, it needs about 1 inch of water per week. Actually, right now, I feel like we're in a little bit of a dry spell right now. We've been getting ample rain, leading up till now. So that normally means that you're going to be watering your lawn maybe twice a week for 20 or 30 minutes to get that 1 inch of water per week. That's to keep it green and looking nice. Now, if it's a well-established lawn, it's been in the ground for 3-4 years and it actually has a deep root system, you don't have to water. Your lawn will probably go into what we call summer dormancy. When it gets hot, when it gets dry, the grass basically stops growing. It shuts down its growth. It starts to turn brown. And on most tall fescue lawns, they can remain in that summer dormancy for 8-10 weeks even. And then when the weather changes or improves, it will come back. So I don't have any problem at all. Just not watering, letting your lawn go dormant for the summer. It's a way of conserving resources, but it doesn't look nice and it will bounce back. If you're trying to keep it a managed look and keep it looking green, you're probably watering 2, maybe even 3 times a week in the mid heat of summer.
Got it. Okay. My Lorgonite is in another supply shortage. Do you have any other organic products that you recommend to take its place?
Yeah. So I know we just got another pallet of Milorganite in today, leading up to this session. So if so far we don't have a supply shortage on that one. The fertilizer that I mentioned, Lawn Restore, is a fantastic organic fertilizer. It doesn't use any kind of manure. It's more soybean meal, feather meal, alfalfa meal, so there's no odor with it. It's a very, very good fertilizer. It costs more than Milorganite. That's why people use Milorganite, because it's a little better price. But really, any organic fertilizer is what I would use. And I prefer using organics at this time of year because I get slow release results. You don't have to put it on quite as strong. And most of all, some of these products help in suppressing the disease problems that also follow the stressful summer months. So I'm saying Lawn Restore and Milorganite, but really any organic of your choice.
Got it. Okay. Well, David, we've got about 5 or 6 more questions. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to move on to another topic?
You know what? I like pack too much stuff in this show, and I'm getting carried away with lawns. Let's talk about tomatoes, and hey, we can still field lawn questions, but I just realized the clock is moving, isn't it? So let's take a minute to change gears. I know not everybody's into lawns, so I wanted to mix it up and say, well, let's do the complete other direction. It's a great time for planting tomatoes. And I've got, I think, what do I do here? I've got some pictures to start, kick this one off. You know, our weather here has been so crazy. What was it? Just I think even a week ago, we were still seeing temperatures in the 40s. Now we've got temperatures, I think, that we're going to 90 degrees today. So I was thinking again, I just planted my tomatoes this week. I think it was about 2 nights ago because I've been holding off. I was busy with other things. Plus, tomatoes really love warm conditions. They like to have warm soil conditions. If you put a tomato in the cold soil, it usually just sits there and languishes. So if you're just basics with tomatoes, you know, we're talking about a plant that needs at least 5 hours or more of sunlight. It needs warm soil conditions. It needs consistent moisture, but not kind of water bog kind of situation. And we've just finally kind of jumped right up into those conditions. So again, if you're feeling like you're late, because we say plant tomatoes at Mother's Day, well, we were still having temperatures of like 39 degrees, if you remember, at Mother's Day. So, hey, it is not too late to do this. So tomatoes, if you want to grow them in pots and containers, you get to be big plants. You know, tomatoes, they're vines. They just keep growing and growing and growing. And so it's not unusual to see a tomato 6-7 foot tall by the end of summer. There are some that are better suited for containers. We call it determinate style, that might grow to about 5 feet and stop. But yeah, think big in terms of pots and containers, at least an 18-inch diameter. And I don't like to have tomatoes crowded. As we talk about some of the diseases and everything, it's good that we get good air circulation around. So if you got a sunny spot, let's get going on that. In terms of conditioning the soil, you've heard me talk about this before. I'm a big fan of a product called Bumper Crop. And the thing is, this again is 100% organic. It's a soil conditioner. I use this to improve the soil. It doesn't matter if I'm growing in the ground or if I'm growing in pots. So this is not a planting, not a potting mix, but you mix this with your potting soil or the ground that's in there. You can see the list of ingredients. This is why I like it so much. You know, worm castings, lobster and crab shells, kelp meal, bark, dehydrated manure, you know, sphagnum peat, compost cow manure, dolomitic lime. It's also supplemented with mycorrhizal fungi and stuff. So instead of going out and buying individual ingredients, I feel pretty much like everything you need is in this one bag. So like growing in containers, you know, I think I've used this picture before, but I think this is me and my tomato coming up here in the Earthbox planter. We'll just go to the next image. So everybody's always surprised. Whenever they meet me, the first thing is like, wow, I didn't know you're so tall. That's why I always do shows standing, you know, in a sitting down kind of posture, because I'm about 6'2", and when I try to stand in front of the camera, my head gets chopped off. But there I am. I'm standing with my tomato plant that's growing in an Earthbox. It's just just type of container. It's got a little self-watering reservoir and everything. So I'm 6'2". The tomato right there in the image is probably sitting about 6.5 feet tall. And what I had done that summer, this is a couple years ago, I'm always trying different things, but I just had, you know, my pots are full of the Merrifield potting mix. I stirred in about 25% bumper crop. And that season, I had over 60 tomatoes in the one plant and kept counting. So ever since that time, it's made a believer, and I use this on pretty much everything I plant. So again, we want a good sunny environment, like you can see, keep them consistently moist, a rich soil mix because we're asking a lot of these plants to produce a lot of fruit for us. Now I'm going to look at some of the spoilers, the things that go wrong. There are entire books of nothing but diseases that affect tomatoes. And this is the real disappointing issue that we face. We go out with these high expectations, but again, these are things that can go wrong. The number one problem that I face out there and that I see at the plant clinics is this disease. It's called late blight. Sometimes it's called a water mold. And I emphasize that because it's closely related to brown algae. And there's many different strains of this pathogen. It causes root rot in ornamental plants. This is one that caused the potato famine blights, which is so possible. This is the one that will break your heart on tomatoes. It starts out, you can see in the leaves where you might get that kind of just this irregular areas, sometimes described as water-soaked look on the leaf. It quickly migrates into the stem, causing those cankers. And I put the tomato fruit in there where you start to see the area gets a little bit sunken and collapsed. These are the early symptoms. This is what it looks like before it starts progressing to the vines dying, the leaves dying, your fruit rotting. At that point, school's out. So these are things to look out for and understand the connection with moisture. This will affect plants. Tomatoes are highly susceptible. Anytime we're in that 60 to 80 degree temperature range and it's very wet or even very high humidity. So for us here in the mid-Atlantic region, this is what our summers look like. What I have found is like the single best thing we can do to prevent this is just, again, keeping the area clean, keeping the plants, I'll show this later, upright in cages off the ground, good air circulation, anything that we can help to keep our plants dry helps in suppressing and preventing this disease from getting in there. Another disease that I see a lot of, but it's kind of less harmful, if shown in the next picture, is septoria leaf spot. Because people often get these two things, they can occur simultaneously. Because again, it's that same 60 to 80 degrees in wet or humid conditions. Septoria is a fungal leaf spot that causes several of these little small black or brown spots to occur in the leaves. It can migrate onto the fruit that cause spotting on the fruit. But this is not quite as bad because it doesn't outright kill the plants. The late blight's that one that moves kind of from the bottom up and actually devastates your plants. So what can we do to stop these things? I'm showing our next picture where they are actually growing in the ground. This is the hardest thing in the world for us to do as gardeners. You have to have some self-discipline. If you insist on cramming your tomatoes 2 feet apart where they get intertwined and grow together and you don't get good air circulation and they splash on each other, then this disease just goes crazy. This is kind of, again, my social distancing message for gardeners. It's really hard to take tomatoes and plant them 5 feet apart from each other. But this is how I eliminated late blight from my garden. I just, as you can see, I like to cage them, keep them up off the ground, keep them 5 feet apart so they have good air circulation. I've got a mulch under the ground, basically to prevent splashing, which is where the Phytophthora lives, is in the soil and then splashes onto the plant. And if I can convince myself to plant 3 tomatoes instead of cramming 5 tomatoes in there, it's success. What's even harder is when I moved into a townhome and I was growing in an earth box, which the instructions tell you to plant 2 tomatoes in the earth box. Following instructions will lead you to disappointment. It's hard, but what you have to do is put 1 tomato in the earth box. If you can't bring yourself to do that, or you get into the disease cycle, then we have fungicides that we've got to start treating, and I'll show you those in just a moment. One last little spoiler alert here that I'm going to show you this picture. This is not a disease, but this is called blossom end rot. This is a physiological disorder where you can see how it's consistently showing on the bottom of the fruit. If the plant's not getting consistent watering, it's not getting consistent supply of calcium as that fruit's developing and enlarging, then the bottom end of it, the part furthest from the flower, just doesn't develop. But this isn't a disease, it's just physiological. So what do we do about all these things? Number one, follow all the right cultural guidelines that I talked about. And number two, if it gets down to where you got to start doing some pest control, I'll show you a couple suggested products. In terms of effectiveness and what's going to work for those like the leaf spot diseases like the septoria and that Phytophthora, if you run into that, Daconil fungicide is probably our highest rated control on those. It is labeled and approved for use on vegetables. I just know myself and most of my customers are trying to avoid having to go the chemical route, but that is certainly an option. If you get into those problems, copper, the copper fungicide, this is an organic material that you can intervene and help to suppress the problems. But again, sometimes with late blight, you know, if the weather's working against you and that gets started, it's just really hard to manage. And then one last little product I was going to show you here is, we didn't talk about insects because I'm trying to be brief on all this, but if you end up with issues like spider mites, you know, aphids, you know, tomato hornworm, those kind of things, if you get into that, then there's some insecticidal super soap. This is a combination of both insecticidal soap and a product called spinosad. And this gives you a broad range of control, really good results on most of our pest problems. And we're not having to go to any chemicals. This is, again, all organic stuff. So I'm cramming a lot of stuff in that little brief time there. We'll go back to questions. If we got follow-up questions, like I said, on the lawn or the tomatoes, let's cover that. And then before we sign out, I've got one other little alert that I want to share with you.
Sounds good. We've got a couple questions on tomatoes, and then we can go back to lawn. So the first one is, if you are trying to increase the calcium for tomatoes, does it increase the pH? We have someone who wants to plant a tomato with blueberry plants, but they want to know if it's going to cause any problems to combine them based on their soil.
You can use gypsum. Gypsum is calcium sulfate. So that's a good way to put calcium in the soil without altering the pH. The other is, you know, a lot of people use lime, but that's probably what you're asking about. But lime elevates the pH as well as providing the calcium. So like I say, if you want to keep your pH where it is, but get some calcium in there, maybe the thing for you to do is get some gypsum.
Sounds good. Do you have a favorite kind of tomato that you like to use?
Oh, I do. But really, don't get stuck on this. You got to experiment. You got to try all different things. But in the past, what I was growing, like that one that was over 6.5 feet tall that I brag about, that's a variety that's called Big Beef. In terms of productivity, reliability, flavor, when I came down where I've only got room for one tomato, that was Big Beef. Now, I'm not planting Big Beef this year because the squirrels have enjoyed every single tomato I've grown. I was gonna skip it all together, and then at the last minute, now I'm trying a cherry tomato this summer, hoping maybe the squirrels won't be as interested in that.
The squirrels have not gotten to mine.
Yeah. You're saying squirrels are eating yours?
Yeah, but you know I'm ahead since I'm in Florida. But yeah, they haven't gotten to mine. Thank goodness.
All right. Well, that gives me a little bit of hope and stuff. So
it'll work for you too.
Yeah.
But we'll see. No guarantees. They may just, I don't know. All right. So back to a little bit of lawns. If someone has wild violets in their lawn, what can they do to get rid of them?
there's a product. It's just called nutsedge killer. The active ingredient in there is called sulfentrazone. That won't mean anything to you. But violets are really tough. They don't go without a fight. But so far right now, the sulfentrazone, or what's called nutsedge killer, which is made by Ortho, that's giving our best results. But you may have to do a few times. Spray it, wait another month. If it's not dead, then you spray it again. Wait another month. If it's not dead, and you may have to do a third application. But that's what I would recommend.
Excellent. Okay. Okay. So if you're using preen, will it help with Lespedeza and other weeds besides crabgrass?
It is. Preen is labeled for about 35 or 40 different weeds. They just put crabgrass on there because that's the one that most of us use. On Lespedeza, it is what they call suppression, which means exactly that. It's not going to give you total control, but it may help suppress it. if you really are targeted and want to get rid of Lespedeza, then I would tell you put down the product. It's called, I'm trying to remember if it's Portrait or Gallery. It's called Gallery. It's called broadleaf weed control with Gallery. That's going to be your best treatment to get Lespedeza. But for example, but that does not control crabgrass. So yeah, some of these things come with what you're trying to target.
Thanks. You just got a question on Facebook about your googly-eyed monkey mug. You get questions about that every week.
Yeah, well, this is my mascot, and you can't have one. This is custom.
It is. I know. I miss being up in Virginia so that I can see the monkey mug every single day.
Yeah, this is a compilation of some coworkers messing around with my mug, but it's a favorite.
All right. Next question. We get a lot of these. Will the cicadas damage people's lawns?
No. Actually, cicadas help your lawn. That's natural aeration. They're tunneling and burrowing up in and out of the soil, helps to aerate it. So again, the damage with cicadas comes when the female is laying her eggs in the twigs of trees primarily. But for your lawn, at most, you might consider it a nuisance, and at best, you would say it's natural aeration.
Thanks, David. Okay, so for someone who wants to use Trimec, is it too hot to use it at between 85 and 90 degrees, or is there any temperature requirement?
There are definitely temperature restrictions and everything. You want to make sure it's not windy. This is a little side note, but I've had more people damaging their shrubs and flowers this year. I had a customer in today whose pachysandra was damaged. Somebody last week, their euonymus was damaged by applying weed killers on windy days, and it's drifted over and impacted their ornamental. So pay attention to wind. You also want dry conditions, and temperatures really should be below 85. The label says 90 and that's it, but I'm conservative. I'm going to say below 85 degrees. But that's really at the time of application. So let's say if you're out early in the morning and you're doing this during the application time, it's still the temperature. If I'm doing it early in the morning, if it goes to 90, later that afternoon, still no problem. It's just during the time of application and while it's drying, we have to have those conditions. If it jumps up to 90 in the afternoon, fine. Or if you're doing it in the evening, after temperatures have cooled down, that's fine. I appreciate you bringing that up.
That's great. So for someone who fertilized their lawn in early March, is it okay to fertilize again with Milorganite or Lawn Restorer? Can you do one last round of fertilization at this point?
You really don't need to. Like I said, we like to fertilize our lawn once in the spring. Some people, like yourself, hey, you want to get there and get an early start on things, no problem at all. Like I said, my thinking is I like to wait until after the growth is peaked, before the hot weather, and hit it right now. But the fertilizer you put down in March should be totally sufficient. And this is again, just totally completely optional. If you just, hey, it's getting hot, it's losing a little vigor, you're a lawn aficionado, take a lot of pride in it, I'd say you could put something like Lawn Restore Milorganite on there, but really just a light application, just not even half of what the label is. The label says it covers 2,500 square feet. I'm telling you, spread it out over 5,000 square feet or even more.
Got it. Okay. All right. So this person's asking for some possible lawn alternatives that wouldn't be hurt by a lawn crew mowing over it. If it can handle low watering, shade, and part shade conditions, that would be even better. Do you know of anything?
To me, my kind of go-to on that a lot of times is the dwarf mondo grass. Now it's just occasional foot traffic. It's not going to withstand heavy foot traffic like a regular lawn would. But let's say I'm passing over once a week, with a lawnmower, and I'm assuming they're using the turf type tires on there, then I would suggest mondo grass is not a true grass. I think it's in the asparagus family. It looks like grass. It's definitely shade and drought tolerant. I should probably disclose now, I try to do this every time, I don't have a lawn. I just preach about them because again, I'm in a more of a shade condition, a small area. And I ended up putting mondo grass down, and stepping stones is what I use a lot in my garden.
That's great. Thanks. Okay, back to the tomatoes for a bit. Can you add eggshell into the soil for calcium?
You absolutely can. That is a good source of calcium. I would say now, if you're just putting eggshells in there, it's going to take a long time before it decomposes and available to plants. So definitely, if you take the time to crush them up into a fine powder, that will give you faster results.
Okay. Once tomatoes get to a certain height, are you meant to pinch off parts of it in any way, or?
You can do that, but it starts to reduce the yield a little bit. But I've done that when these things start getting just ridiculously tall and overgrowing. Sometimes you don't really have a lot of choice but to prune that back. But it does, in a sense, it does set the plant back. It will start developing more side shoots. It will resume flowering. So I don't like to do that. But if it's just getting out of control, we've all been there, and you just have to make a choice.
Got it. Okay. We have about 3 more questions right now in the queue. So I think you had one more topic you wanted to cover.
I
Do you want
totally
to do that?
forgot about that, Sally. Thank you. Yes, let's show my other couple pictures. I wasn't including this in the program, but I've got 3, 4, 5 people a day. They're coming in with this scale insect showing up mostly on their hollies. But this pest shows up on hollies, yews, and camellias. It's in the name. I was lost my train of thought. Now, what you're looking at in this picture, this is a magnified view. I got a little 10x magnifier, and this is on the bottom of the leaf. If you go out and you're looking at camellias, yews, and hollies today, on the underside of the leaf, these are egg cases. It's really visible. A lot of people getting attention. These pictures I took in 2014. We had this major outbreak of cotton camellia scale in 2014. It died down for several years, but is back again this year with a vengeance. That's what I thought. So when you see the sort of that black bump on there, that's the mature adult. The female lays this mass of eggs, and they start to die. And then our next picture is when these eggs start to hatch in June. So these eggs hatch out, and if you look closely, coming out of that little white patch of eggs, these tiny, tiny little spots, they're about the size of a speck of coarse pepper. They will start hatching out in June. They attach to the leaf. They start sucking sap out of the leaf tissue, which creates this residue, and then that black mold grows on there. So lots of people are coming in because they're finding the black mold, which tells me that we have the scale present. So here's the deal. You have a choice of treatment options. You can wait until mid-June, that June 10, June 20, and spray the plants with pretty much anything, horticulture oil, insecticidal soap, something like 8, any kind of bug spray you might have in the garage will work if we catch it during that hatching or treatment time. If the plants are too tall, because what I run into is sometimes people have large hollies, and the holly's too thick, it's too dense, it's too tall to get good coverage with the spray, then you could treat that with a systemic product right now. And that's why I wanted to make sure I put this in here, because I'm getting many people a day in there. If you want to treat it systemically, what I'm showing you right here, this is a product that you can put into the soil, and you put it in the soil now, but it takes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to get from the roots up into the canopy of the tree.
And what is the name of that product, David?
What is this called?
It's a little small. I just can't see
Tree
it.
Shrub Drench. Now we sell 2 or 3 different varieties, different sizes and everything. The same product is sold by Bio Advance. It's called Tree and Shrub Protect and Feed. This is a generic version called Tree and Shrub Drench.
Okay.
But again, the big thing is go out there. If you've got yews, hollies, camellias, take a look, check them. If you have that problem, stop by, see us at the plant clinic. We can fill you in those details, but you need to act on that now if it's a drench, or like I said, we can wait until June when the eggs hatch out and treat it then. So yeah, packed a lot of stuff in here today, but we got a few more minutes left. Let's take some questions.
All right, back to questions. Thank you, David. That's all really good information on current stuff. So this is back to the Poe annua. This person has a lot. So do you have a program that you recommend to get rid of it from their lawn?
Yes, Poan, you can manage it with a weed preventer. But the problem is you need to do that weed prevention in late August or September. So the preen crabgrass control that we talked about in the video for crabgrass and other weeds, that will also work for the POA, but it's a different timing of application because that's a winter annual. So that preen crabgrass control in kind of late August or September. If you want to do some seeding in the fall, there is another product that I can call you. It's called Step 1 for seeding. But again, I want to make sure we get you in the right product because you can do this Step 1 for seeding at the same time as your seeding. It allows your grass to go, prevents the POA, but then we still have to follow up with the preen. So thing is, it can be done. It's a little more complex, but that's a conversation that we need to have, I would say, sometime in August. So you're able to get that started in that end of August, early part of September.
Got it. Okay. So back to my Lorgonite for a moment. They recommend application 4 times a year. Is 1 time a year fine, or should you actually be applying 4 times? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So 4 times a year would be like a maximum application rate. But if I was doing that, and again, this is for us in the Mid-Atlantic region. You know, we're because we have hot, dry summers, cold, wet winters, and you know the fluctuating conditions. We're on a little different program here. But if you wanted to do that, you'd be doing 2 or 3 applications in the fall and still only once in spring. So up to 4 applications, but they're not uniformly spaced apart. So again, I'm just saying maybe 1 now. I don't like to do summer fertilizing application. You can fertilize kind of between now and June 15, but then we don't fertilize again until September. And personally, you know, I usually switch back. That's where I go to higher nitrogen rates. I'll be recommending Amerifit Premium. So, you know, I mix and match these things, but again, that's all your choice.
Thanks, David. All right. So how do you get rid of buttercup in the lawn?
Again, that's a tough perennial weed. I would say that Trimex Speed is a good one to use. Sometimes it takes more than 1 application.
Okay. Okay, this person has brown spots on their lawn now. Is there anything they can do about it at this point in time?
This seems early to be seeing disease problems. That's often what we start getting into more as we go into June. But I would really like to, ideally, is to see samples. You cut out a little piece of your lawn. You cut maybe the size of a 6-inch square that has half brown grass, half green grass. You know, like a little piece of sod. Take pictures that show kind of the pattern throughout your lawn, and then bring that into the plant clinic where we can get you a better diagnosis. If you're just not able to get in, then please send, if you send pictures to Sally, she'll forward them on to me. I'll do the best I can from pictures, but there's nothing that I've seen going on in lawns at our plant clinics. Everybody has a really beautiful lawn right now, except obviously you're starting to see some issues. Maybe something like red thread or early dollar spots showing up, but that would be a little bit unusual. So I'd like to get a better diagnosis.
Thanks, David. Okay, we have a couple more questions. Do you have anything that will kill chickweed, but that won't harm this person's beloved wild violet and dwarf clover?
No, the same stuff that kills, now you said you had wild violet and clover?
Yeah, wild violet and clover that they like, and then chickweed and some other stuff that they don't like.
So chickweed will die out during the hot weather of summer, but if you put a weed preventer down, you know, Preen makes one that they use for garden and landscape beds. You can put a weed preventer down, but again, that's going to be like a late August, September time period, because some of these things, like we talked a lot about Poa annua, we're talking about chickweed. They are winter annuals. They grow during the fall, the winter, and the spring, and they fizzle out in the summer. So the answer is yes, but that's something we need to do a preventative treatment on in late summer.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So now this is for the scale. Can this person do the drench now and spray in June if they have a lot of scale and a holly that's really tall and thick? just to make sure the whole tree gets treated, or is that overkill?
That's overkill. I spend a lot of time recommending pesticides, but I want to be cautious with it. With the soil drench, because I said we've been dealing with this problem a long time. I get like 95% control with the soil drench. So I'm saying we'd do one or the other. There's really no reason you would need to do both.
Got it. Okay. And this is the last question. So we actually got to them all today, which is exciting. This person has some zoysia grass, but some areas haven't greened up this year. So is there anything that can be done to fix that?
Well, again, zoysia is a warm season grass. It's like on the opposite schedule of all the grasses we've been talking about. You could definitely be fertilizing zoysia right now. Again, you don't have to pamper it. You could put an organic fertilizer on there. You could put the Maryfield Premium on there. I hope that's the only thing that's going on. We rarely have any kind of pest issues with zoysia. But if it's not just a matter of fertilizing and greening it up, then you're always welcome to bring samples or send pictures. Once in a while, we run into a pest that's called zoysia billbug, but that is unusual.
Thanks, David. All right. So we're out of time, and just want to say a quick thank you for joining us. To everybody who's watching this on Zoom, if you guys have questions after the class, you can just hit reply to that confirmation email. That goes to me. Send me an email with any questions that you have. If you need to send us pictures of any issues, I'll forward stuff on to David. We're happy to field questions and answer things after the class. David's happy to. I'm happy to make sure that he can. I won't answer any questions just because I can't. So if you are on Facebook, you can send us a message. I would recommend actually going to our website, maryfieldgardencenter.com, and hitting the contact us button. That's going to be the fastest way, just because our team's a little bit small. We monitor Facebook, but it sometimes takes us a little longer, and the contact us page goes straight to one of my colleagues who answers our emails. So he's fantastic. He's behind the scenes usually on these classes. So I believe that's about it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Peg Beer has actually added a class for anyone who's interested in. Keep your eyes on your inboxes today, because she's going to be teaching a class on vegetables next week, since I know it stayed a little cooler longer. So we're going to go ahead and offer one more class on veggies. So keep an eye out for that. And I think that's it for today. David, do you have anything you want to finish off with?
Again, just, thanks for joining us, giving up some of your afternoon. I know I enjoy doing these, and as long as you keep tuning in, we'll keep doing it. Next week, or not next week, be a couple weeks, I'm thinking I'll be talking about perennials is kind of what's on my mind coming up. So stay tuned.
Yeah, keep an eye out on your inboxes for more announcements on our classes to come. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Have a good day. Thanks, David.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.